I'm going to take you through the game between Ding Liren and Fabiano Caruana from the Sinquefield Cup round 9. So Ding number 3 in the world, Caruana number 2 in the world, and the players were sharing the lead in the tournament along with 3 others going into this round. So this is quite a crunch battle. It's a very subtle game. There are some beautiful moments, so I hope you're going to enjoy this. There's some amazing stuff in this game. So the opening was very regular. It's a Queen's Gambit declined. And Ding plays Bishop f4, which is turning into the main line of the Queen's Gambit. We don't see Bishop g5 much anymore these days. This keeps more tension in the position. It's as simple as that. Because with the bishop on g5, there's always the possibility that black can exchange pieces, the dark square bishops, but this is trickier. Now b6, this is like the move of the tournament. It's been played in several games so far. It's all fashion. This is not a bad move. In recent years, we've seen knight d7 a great deal, and also the old mainline c5, both reasonable moves. b6, the idea is, well, at least as played by these guys, to exchange off the light square bishops very early on, which reduces some of the tension in the position. Well, black isn't going to get mated with a bishop takes h7, that's certain. Of course, in exchanging pieces like this, there are drawbacks, namely that black's knight on a6 looks pretty sorry, but on the plus side, you can see that a square has been created for the queen on b7, which connects these rooks, and black is ready to strike out with c5, which, well, if white doesn't play carefully, this could simply equalize the position. Ding played a3 and then knight b5. So this is obviously a nice idea that the knight obviously can't be driven away by a pawn coming to a6, and I think highlights the difference between the activity of the two pieces. And this bishop f4 is also very annoying for black. Again, compare these two pieces. So white's advantage is minimal. It's just a case of slightly more activity. If black can neutralize that activity, then it'll just be a draw. But not so easy. Rook c8 played. Previously, Nakamura had played knight e4 against Carlsen in that position. Rook c8 looks very normal. And now a challenging move from Ding. Very interesting move. If this pawn is taken, let's say like this, then, well, basically black has problems on the a file here. Knight takes, rook takes a7, and going back, if bishop takes b4, then actually queen a2 is problematic for black. There's all kinds of nasty things going on there. And if pawn takes pawn in the middle, knight takes, and again we can see that white is doing very well here. That pawn on b4 preventing well, a knight, bishop, whatever, from occupying c5. White is obviously better there. So what happens after b4? Well, Caruana played knight d5. Ding exchanged on c5. Now, if this is exchanged off, then actually that gives white an option to push forward sometimes with f5. So Caruana played correctly. But again, it's obvious that white just has a bit more activity. It's a little bit unpleasant. So now the queen is attacked. Well, my computer thinks that after queen a8, black is very close to equalizing the position. But yeah, if you played perfectly with black, that might well be so. But it feels tactically slightly suspect with the queen on the same line as the knight. Queen is obviously not beautifully placed in the corner. White has very nice activity, so black still has a job there to equalize the position. And Caruana instead plays a move which to me is more natural. He brings the rook up and protects the queen. And it also allows black's knight to hop back into the game with knight c7. But still, Ding manages to maintain a little bit of initiative here. After this exchange, you can see that this a pawn is actually quite useful for white. So this is another little problem that black has to encounter. And right, both sides have gained something here. So black has managed to exchange some pieces, very good. But in the meantime, white has managed to advance this a pawn, which could be rather useful, pressing against this one here. And Ding has also coordinated beautifully. And I think this introduces really the main theme of this game, is that basically Ding is going to try to turn in this direction, turn towards black's king on the 7th or 8th rank. And Caruana has a problem to cope with this. So let's see what happened. h6, yep, got to solve the back rank problem. And Ding takes a little time out to do the same. And knight e5. This is a crucial point in the position. And white is very active here. And this knight floats in. And now a6. So could be annoying that black's pawn is under fire here. And the knight jumps back again. And here is one of those moments where you're not quite sure as the defender what to do. And there are several of these moments over the next few moves. Very difficult situation. Now, Caruana just nudged the rook back after, well, a minute and a half. He didn't spend too long. I think this is the point when you're also fighting against the clock, and you realise, should, or the thought in your mind is, should I invest time to try to calculate, or do I just play a quick and normal move? Well, this looks like quite a reasonable move actually, but this is not easy to determine. So let's just see what would happen. So it's quite a forcing variation. And at first glance, this looks extremely good for white. If the queen goes back, then we can see how nice it is to have that pawn on a6. White is attacking the pawn on a7, probably a winning position. But here, it's possible just to give up that pawn. Now that's a cool move. Put the knight on here, and now it's again another cool move. I mean, these are not simple moves, but the idea is that now it's black's turn to counterattack at the other end of the board, and it's very difficult for white to bring these pieces back into the defense. Now that is very, very difficult to see, but I'm just showing that that's the kind of variation that Caruana would have always had to look at in this kind of situation. Do you sit there or do you make a break for it? And it's very difficult to determine which is correct. There are several moments like that coming up. So that protects the knight on e5. Potentially loosens the second rank. We'll see that in a second, how significant that is. So rook d2. Caruana looking for counterplay. Now here's another moment where Caruana has a tricky decision, but black could take this pawn, but then you can see this is actually very, very strong. Suddenly white is getting in on the 8th rank. And okay, this gets protected, but then the 7th rank comes into play and white stands better. Okay, back to this position. So rook d5 played to block out white's queen. And it's looking very dangerous. for Caruana. King h7 played. King h2, yeah, compare the two kings. Well, at the moment, black is sort of okay, but f7 is under pressure. White's king actually very safe on h2. Caruana exchanged, and now he took on a6. Attacking the rook. Now, I suppose the obvious move here is to play rook f8, but knight d7 actually exchanges lots of pieces. So first, Ding played rook a8 with the threat of knight takes f7, keeping all the pieces on the board. Queen b7 attacks the rook, defends the f-pawn. Rook f8, and here is a very tricky defensive moment for Caruana. He is under severe pressure. f7 is about to cave in. If the queen goes up here, then knight f7 is very strong. Knight d7 in this case can be met by rook takes f7, so no exchanges there. Obviously the pin is highly unpleasant. In fact, Caruana here could play queen b4, which looks very odd, to push the rook into taking the pawn, and only then play queen b1. The difference is that there's no knight f7 here, and white's attack is strangely a little bit slower. Okay, we can take this, but in this case black is a pawn down, but the counterplay is coming with rook h1, and when the king comes here, you know, potentially queen e1 to attack the queen. That would give black sufficient counterplay, but this is very hard to judge. In fact, you know, there isn't any strong attack on g7 remarkably, but to see queen b4 and then queen b1, this is very, very difficult, and particularly when you're short of time. Caruana was much lower on time than Ding. In fact, Fabi played here what to me looks like a very plausible move, rook b5, offering to exchange queens. So if queen takes queen, rook takes, well, obviously black is over the worst here. Again, rook takes f7. If rook takes f7, then black would exchange queens, not too bad. So Ding needs to avoid the exchange. So queen e2 is the obvious move. But then watch what happens. Rook b2, attacking the queen. Queen d3, check. Queen e4, and white's problem here is that it's difficult to avoid the exchange of queens. Well, queen d8, queen takes g2 mate, and if queen takes queen, then, well, white can try to win this position, but it's extremely difficult. So here, you know, I was looking at this during the game and thinking, well, maybe Fabi has done enough. Ding played here an absolutely brilliant move. This is the best move of the game. He played queen f1. And this gives white the advantage. It's very subtle. So remember in that last variation with queen e2, how the rook came to b2, cut through the queen to g2. Well, if in this case, rook b2, well, there's no tempo for a start, the queen defends g2, and after knight takes f7, with the idea of check, and then the king comes to g6 and knight e5 check, suddenly this is fantastic for white. Alright, so what about rook b1 attacking the queen? Well, in this case, queen d3 check, queen e4. Remember, the rook is on b1, not b2. And in this case, the queen slams up to the 8th rank, threatening rook h8. And the king does not have an escape square. So this is really fine margins, but what a brilliant move to really, he's got to the heart of this position and understood it perfectly. So Queen d5 played, preventing Queen d3 check, but now Knight f7, and now Ding is through to the king. Still not so clear though. Knight d7, attacking the rook, preventing White's knight from returning to e5. So rook b8. With an unpleasant pin, Caruana forces an exchange of rooks, but incredibly, White's attack continues here with a couple of very deft moves. Queen b1 check, obviously double attack. Check here, attacks the knight. So Queen f5 forced. Exchange of knights will not help White. So Queen b7 protects the knight. And amazingly, Ding manages to coordinate his queen and knight beautifully here and set up an attack on Black's king. Queen and knight are actually a deadly attacking duo. Let's see how this happens. Check and knight e8, threatening the g7 pawn, and basically Black's queen is overloaded here. It's defending g7 and defending the knight, but White has some extra firepower here. The pawn advances, the queen comes in, so look at that White queen attacking all these pieces, and the e-pawn prevents Black's king from staggering up the board, and is also ready to block out with e5. And now this is hopeless. e5, great move, blocking out the queen, and Caruana is now lost in this position. Knight f3 check looks like it might open the king, but actually with a couple of accurate moves the king staggers up the board and is safe on h4. So that's the game position. Queen d7 just played, king g6, and now the king is chased up the board. There's no checkmate, but the e-pawn advances, and Caruana can't even give up the knight for the pawn because of that pin. And that was the final move of the game, with the pawn rolling through to the 8th rank. Absolutely brilliant from Ding Liren. So that meant he went into the lead, having defeated Fabiano, and he now shares the lead after 9 rounds with Yan Nippon-Nishi, who defeated Wesley So. So after 9 rounds, Ding and Nepo have 5.5. Anand and Karyakin have 5. Realistically, with 2 rounds to go, I think only those 4 players have a chance to win the tournament. By the way, this win brings Ding very close to Caruana on the live rating list. Caruana now 28-13 and Ding Liren 28-12. Ding is on fantastic form. Hit the subscribe button if you want to subscribe to the channel, and check out the links to PayPal and Patreon.com if you want to support us. Thanks for watching.